My name is Marcy Trent Long. This is Season 8, Covid-19 with HKU. I've invited my colleague Bonnie Au to host our final episode of this season. She worked with us in our previous series on illegal pangolin trade in China and Asia. Bonnie spoke with Dr. Tommy Lam from the University of Hong Kong to discuss the origins of the coronavirus.
I guess maybe we can just start by having you introducing yourself a little bit first.
All right, I'm Tommy Lam. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Public Health, and I'm working on emerging infectious disease, studying how the virus emerged from the animal populations to human, and what are the genetic determinants for their jumping across the whole species.
Okay, so why don't you talk about that research on pangolins and the origins of coronavirus?
All right. So, for over decades of research, scientists have found a very large diversity of coronavirus in bats. And if you look at the human coronavirus, we can always trace to some related coronavirus in bats. However, this genetic relatedness does not necessarily suggest a direct transmission from bats to human. And in fact, bats do not frequently contact with human in most cases, whereas some other animals, particularly the domestic ones, they have more contact with human and they also have exposure to bats in nature. And this type of two-way exposure allows the transmission of bat virus to these type of animal and then to human.
So Dr. Lam is suggesting that the coronavirus, rather than jumping from bats to humans directly, most likely uses intermediary mammal hosts to help out the transmission.
Some experiments have shown that the bat coronavirus generally do not enter human cells easily, and therefore believe the virus required adaptation in some intermediary mammal that share similar receptor with human. So that's kind of form of belief of involvement of intermediary mammals in the emergence of coronavirus from bats to human.
A receptor is a key component on a cell surface, and it is what enables the virus to jump between species. So, one of Dr. Lam's aims in his research is to identify the intermediary links.
There was a paper previously published in the late 2019 reporting some coronaviruses in pangolin. And after looking at the genetic sequences published by that paper, we find virus sequences that are closely related to COVID virus, and therefore we expand the search to other pangolin samples.
So during the COVID outbreak, Dr. Lam partnered with collaborators in mainland China and began looking for archived pangolins that they could test.
And so we found some coronavirus in the Malayan pangolins that were smuggled into China between year 2017 and 2019. And these viruses were found to be genetically related to the COVID virus, and they form two lineages. So the lineage represents a series of transmission history. If we only see one lineage, then it means there is one species jump, but now we see two. So therefore, it's suggesting there were two species jump from bats to pangolins. And so this suggests such jump between these two animals is not a singleton event. So it may have happened more frequently.
Why is it so important to find out where the coronavirus come from?
This is really important because it could alert people not to get close to those animals that could transmit the virus to human. And that could prevent the virus jumping again to human, causing another outbreak.
Dr. Lam is suggesting, like many health researchers around the world, that we need to fully understand the origins of the coronavirus in order to stop the transmissions between animals and humans happening again. Early findings suggested that the virus may have started in a seafood wet market in China's Wuhan city that sells wildlife. China then announced a complete ban on its wildlife trade. According to a report released by the Chinese Academy of Engineering in 2017, this industry is worth over $74 billion and keeps some 14 million people employed. Chinese authorities have since seized at least 39,000 wild animals that were being traded. I asked Dr. Lam,
what other animals or what other kind of things that research or scientists have been looking into in terms of transmission to humans?
Some animal experiments have shown that the COVID virus could infect cats and ferrets quite well, And so these could be potential animals that carry the COVID virus and related viruses. So search remains to be done to confirm their roles as intermediate hosts for the transmission of the virus from bats to human.
During the 2003 SARS coronavirus outbreak, scientists found that civet cat cages were covered in the coronavirus, suggesting civet cats could be the intermediary animal for the SARS coronavirus. And that has really helped form the foundation for researching on COVID-19. Scientists targeted animals seen in wet markets to look for the related coronaviruses and try and identify the intermediary host.
What were the similarities between pangolins and civet cats?
The similarity to human from these two animals in the cell receptor is higher than the similarity from the bat's receptor. And so in other words, the cell receptor are closer to human than the bat's ones. So that might be a factor for pangolins and civet being intermediate hosts. If the virus could infect this host animal, it may also able to infect human because adaptations to the receptor could also lead to the abilities of infecting human cells.
So after determining which animals have similar cell receptors to humans, making it more likely for a virus to be able to lead to a human host, what's next?
First, of course, we want to do more sampling to see if we are able to identify a coronavirus in pangolin that is even more closer than the bats to humans. So that could establish more solid evidence for pangolin being an intermediate host. Second, we want to know whether the virus infections in pangolins were actually facilitating the virus transmissions or infections to humans.
There are many conspiracy theories circulating on the internet, one of them being that the virus could be artificially developed on a petri dish. So, what do you think of those theories?
Well, I didn't see any real evidence supporting the lab-made origin. And some other scientists, like the European team and others from Scripps Institutes, they have looked at the virus genomes, and they find there is no evidence. I agree with their findings. Discovering more related coronavirus in wildlife and other animals will actually suggest it is unlikely to be lab-made.
Okay, so it seems likely that the coronavirus originates in nature and wasn't made in a laboratory. Another big question to ask, something rather controversial that has sparked heated debates online, is that people, including US politicians, have referred to the coronavirus as the Wuhan virus. Do we know for a fact that the virus is from Wuhan? I mean, the first cases were discovered in the city.
I don't think we could make a definite conclusion now. The COVID virus was first reported in China, and it is similar to a bat coronavirus that is from Yunnan. These are evidence for originate from China.
But the pangolins that Dr. Lam investigated in his research were not from China.
They are the Malayan pangolin that were smuggled into China from other places in Asia. So this actually challenged the ideas that the virus actually originated in China. We are still quite puzzled about where did the Malayan pangolin contract the coronavirus. You know, these animals were not supposed to be found in China. They were naturally from Southeast Asia. Whether these Malayan pangolin were infected with coronavirus along the trafficking route to China or in their indigenous habitats, we want to find out.
A common smuggling route for Malayan pangolins, as we talked about in Season 7, is through China's southern Yunnan province. But given this is a black market trade, it is difficult for researchers to track these Malayan pangolins' trafficking routes. So to sum up, scientific evidence have suggested that bats are most likely the origins of the coronavirus. We learned that the virus was not developed from a man-made petri dish, and an intermediary host like a pangolin will be needed to facilitate the transmission from bats to humans. We're still unclear the exact cause of the COVID-19 disease, and until we know that information, we are still at risk of another pandemic. We will be organizing a live stream event with Dr. Lam to answer questions about the link between pangolins and the coronavirus. Follow Sustainable Asia on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn to be updated on our new initiative, #AskSustainableAsia.